Welcome, my friends, my dear friends. I've got some cake. This video is my most controversial video yet, and I'm here to defend the third generation of Skins. The teens in season 5 and season 6. In case you don't know, Skins is a British teen drama series which aired in the 2010s, late 2000s, and is about a group of teenagers in Bristol living their best life, being a bit wild, and each episode is about one specific person in the group. It's about their time in sixth form, so the last 2 years of high school before you go to university or you start working, and you just follow their lives and their dramas. And at the time the show was kind of very controversial because it deals with a lot of intense topics like drugs, sex, drinking, and it also dealt with a lot of issues like mental illness, dysfunctional families, eating disorders, depression, sexuality, death, bullying, substance abuse. It had everything, truly. And in the Skins world, Skins fandom, there's like this consensus that everybody loves the first generation and the second generation. Let's say the first generation was like peak Skins, and then it kind of went downhill slowly, but people still love the second generation. But I love an underdog, so I loved the third generation. I have to say I still absolutely loved the other two generations. I think the first one is just like the iconic, the blueprint. It's absolutely perfect. That's spectacular, never seen before. It's incredible. I loved season 2 as well. I had a lot of fun watching it, but it was a bit too dark for me at the time. I haven't seen it since, like I watched it as a teenager, but I remember thinking like no one's laughed this whole episode. It's so dark. And I remember it also not relating to my experience of being a teenager at all. Like, yeah, I went to parties, yeah, we had drinks, but it was just so intense. It was so brutal and dark, and I didn't have like a character I actually liked in season 2. It was fascinating to watch, but I didn't like love anyone. And this is when I got into the third generation. I was like, I need something a bit more lighthearted, something more like season 1, and that for me happened with the third generation. This video will contain a lot of spoilers, so if you haven't seen season 5 and 6 of Skins, be warned, there are spoilers. There are very many spoilers. I'm just going to talk freely as if you've already seen it, which I'm thinking that if you clicked on this video, you have. The third generation aired between 2011 and 2012. So I was in my teens, baby. I was young and free, and I was at school. I was studying. I was going to parties. So I was like, this is my life. I'm seeing my life right now at this moment. My life wasn't like Skins, but I wanted it to be. So much so that I named my Instagram handle after the character Grace's in Skins. Like she had a website, I think. Like it was called The Amazing Grace. And I was like, that's so cool. And I made my Instagram handle The Amazing, my name. And I've not changed it since. It's been almost 10 years. Just stuck. I know the third generation wasn't perfect at all. There were so many parts I didn't enjoy. There was so much wrong with it as well. There were characters I just didn't care less about. But for some reason, the third generation just hit different. I don't know. I have to say, I especially loved season 5. In season 6, I loved a few episodes, but season 5, it's flawless to me. It's flawless. And I'm going to tell you what hit different for me, what I loved. So I want to start with the friendships. In the third generation, you have a lot of friendships that are already established. I was obsessed with the friendships in the third generation. They felt like normal, nice friendships. My favourite one was between Aloe and Rich. I just thought it was very normal, it was very sweet, they were supportive, and there wasn't this like huge drama. Like for example with the 3 girls, you have this big drama where they like hate on Liv and like she has to drink a bottle of vodka, which seems a bit extreme looking back. Rich and Aloe seemed like 2 boys I would have known at that age. They just seemed like 16, 17-year-old lads living their best life, being idiots, being insecure, being funny. And I just loved watching them. I really enjoyed that friendship. And I really like the friendship between Minnie, Liv and Grace because, yeah, they had fights and discussions and were mean to each other, but deep down you could just see that they loved each other and were so loyal, and their friendship was so important to them because they'd been friends forever. And I just feel like that's what my friendships were like as a teenager too. You were always getting ready for parties, you were always cramming for exams, you always had these kind of exterior things that influenced your day to day, but at the core it was all about your friendship, and you were loyal, and it was always like, when we're together, fun will be had. And that's what I felt like their friendship was like. It just felt more like a teenage friendship I had at the time. As a teenager, you're very dramatic, and yes, they were very dramatic, but I just felt that. I felt that. The relationship between Rich and Grace was like, made me believe in love, man. Like, looking back, their relationship was very kind of unskins-like, more like a Disney Channel romance. They're from two different worlds. She's a girly girl, a high achiever, a ballet dancer. He's this metal dude. He doesn't believe in the system and hates everything that's conventional. They find each other, and it's beautiful. I have to admit, I had a huge crush on Rich. Still do. So that might have influenced my opinion. Who cares? That's what it's all about. I just thought their relationship was really sweet, and it had so many beautiful scenes. For example, the scene where Grace goes to Will's metal concert and she just like rocks it, and then she's crowd surfing, and Rich is just like, what the hell? And kind of realizes that being positive and having fun is a good thing, because he's so negative and anti everything that meeting Grace kind of makes him realize, oh, I can be happy and like things, which I enjoyed because I don't think I was happy or liked things as a teenager, except this relationship. Another beautiful scene is the ballet scene where Rich has lost his hearing and he just hears a ringing in his ears, and then he goes to Grace's performance and she's just dancing beautifully like a swan, and he's watching it without sound, but you can see he's falling in love with her. It's beautiful. And then, of course, the iconic wedding episode. I've seen that episode so many times. I don't know what it is, but it holds such a special place in my heart. It's stupid because they're teenagers and want to marry, and even then I was like too sensible to think this was a romantic or good idea. But I just like the kind of spontaneity of it, and it kind of reflects what it's like being a teenager, and you just think, this is the most important moment of my life and nothing good's ever going to happen after this, so we have to get married now. The way the friends all join, and it's just sweet. It's such a sweet episode. Another thing I absolutely loved was in season 6, if you can believe, and it was the way they portrayed grief. Huge spoiler alert. After Grace dies, you kind of see how the characters deal with it. In the first 2 generations, when characters died, it was always later in the show. So I really, really like the fact, even though I was devastated that Grace wouldn't be in it anymore, I really enjoyed the fact that you got to see how the people who were closest to Grace dealt with it. And especially the Rich episode is incredible. He lives in Grace's empty house whilst her family and Grace are in the hospital, and just the whole thing is so beautiful. You just kind of see him not wanting to deal with the fact that Grace had the accident. You see him hallucinate interactions with Grace that at the end it turns out they never happened. It was just in his head, kind of how he wished the situation was going. And you as a viewer are like, it's such a gut punch when you hear that she died, and because you followed Will throughout this episode, kind of thinking, oh, everything's gonna be okay, she's called me, everything's fine. Especially the scenes I love in that episode are when there's the concert and he thinks he sees Grace in the crowd. One of the most beautiful scenes is when Will's watching old home videos of Grace on the wall, and there's this huge picture and you just see him looking at it and it's reflecting in his face, and I think it's beautiful. And you have that song, Don't You Worry, playing in the background, and it's just, oh, it broke me as a teenager. I sobbed. And then in Liv's episode, you see how she's dealing with the loss of her best friend throughout the episode, and it's just so heartbreaking, especially when she's like in front of the doctor's office, and then she doesn't want to accept it. She doesn't want to accept her friend's death, and then there's that scene where she actually goes in, and that's when it hits her, and she confides into the woman who works at the doctor's. And that scene always makes me cry. So I don't want to talk about it more because I will cry. Another thing I loved, especially in season 5, was the fact that Frankie, the character we're introduced to in the first episode, is kind of non-binary or gender fluid. And the people in the show just kind of go with it, which is incredible. Like, that's not her story. Frankie's story is her relationships and love. It's all about love with Frankie, but it's not like her gender identity isn't her main storyline, which I thought was so nice to see. And especially living in a small town with like my privileged background, it kind of opened my eyes to a world I hadn't even really known at the time. Does she like girls? Does she like boys? Whatever, everything's fine, everything's cool. It kind of opened my eyes at the time. I was like, wait, she can do whatever she wants and be whoever she wants to be, and it's not like the topic of the show. It's not about her trying to like fight the system. Everyone just kind of accepts her for it. And I just thought that was really wonderful, which just shows how much kind of representation matters, and you have to show different stories, otherwise what's it all for, you know? The music in Skins was always chef's kiss, always incredible. For some reason this season hit different for me. I think in the third generation they had a lot of like indie songs. Well, they always had indie songs, but somehow I like them more with this generation. I still have some songs I just associate with a scene from that, like season 5 or 6. For example, Tom Rosenthal's Lights Are On But Nobody's Home, when Alla's like running up the street. And then Matt and Kim's Daylight, when Grace and Rich are waiting for the others to arrive to their wedding. Hold your breath and count to 10. But where are you? Okay, no, stop singing. When Rich proposes to Grace, and it's that like Romeo and Juliet style proposal, and they have Radical Face's Welcome Home in the background. Oh, it just meant so much to me as a teenager. It's like the soundtrack to my teenage years. It just introduced me to so much good music. The first 2 generations did it as well, but you know, like I said, the third generation kind of meant so much to me. And there were just scenes that were so beautiful and iconic and just meant a lot to me as a teenager. For example, in the very first episode when they're all in the pool at the end and Frankie's in the gang, that's kind of her acceptance, and it kind of shows that we're all misfits, but we can all hang out together, we can have a good time, and it was just so beautiful, that scene. And you kind of got excited for what's to come. I was like, okay, now the gang's together, what's going to happen now? Alo's scenes on the farm were so much fun. The way he had to kind of help out on the farm. I just love those scenes. Them running across the field after the non-wedding and just being young and having fun, and they're all in their like wedding outfits. It's just such a nice scene. When Rich and Liv and the teacher and Liv's little sister are like jumping around Grace's grave. Oh, and it has that song, heart, heart, listen to your heart, and listen to my heart, and all I hear is my body dying. Okay. I can't think about those scenes. The Liv and Rich scenes kill me. Yeah, so those were a few things I loved. There's so much more. There were also a lot of things I didn't like. I didn't really care for Matty or Nick. And I feel like Matty's the actor's everywhere suddenly. He was in Normal People and The Great, so he's doing fine. I didn't really enjoy Frankie's change. She kind of lost the traits everyone liked her for. I didn't really like that Rich wasn't a big part in season 6 as much as he was in season 5, because you can tell I was in love with him. I liked the character Alex. He was fine. I didn't really care a lot. I just thought season 6 wasn't as wholesome as season 5, but season 5 is just, heartwarming. I'm so curious to see if there's anyone else out there whose favourite generation was Generation 3. I don't think there is anyone. I remember it being such a talking point at parties, like, who's your favourite generation? And it was always 2 and sometimes 1, but never 3, never. And I was like, I'm just going to be quiet because I don't want people to judge me. I don't know. Like, I was definitely influenced by the fact that I was the same age or 1 or 2 years younger than the actual cast in the third generation. I think that doesn't matter. The media you consume always has a different meaning with the life you're leading around it. I'd just be very interested to know your thoughts in the comments if you want. like and subscribe if you feel like it. I make bookish and filmish videos. And thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day, baby.